Hello everyone, my name is Greg Ellis and welcome to the second installment for the 2005 football season of Redskin Review. Tonight we'll be talking about the Oak Hills loss in week 1. We'll look ahead at Milford in week 2. And I'll talk about a few other things along the way. Tonight's show is being taped on Monday, August 29th. And with me tonight, as always, is my partner Dan Albers, Anderson head coach Vince Suriano, and tonight we have defensive coordinator Jeff Giesting. Fellas, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And let's just get right into the game, Coach. A tough loss, 25-22. You said last week both teams were very close. It was a close game, lost by 3 points, but what could have been?
Yeah, that was a tough loss for us. It was an old cliche, a bitter pill to swallow because we played well enough to win, but you know, unfortunately, we had some turnovers at critical times and some penalties at critical times that were deciding factors in the game. But we saw a lot more good than we saw bad on the tape, and things that we really wanted to do about playing with great effort and being physical. You know, the thing that I was happy with was the fact that we controlled the line of scrimmage. We out-rushed them. We had 216 yards rushing. Which, you know, they're a pretty good team, and we had not done that all last year in terms of getting over 200 yards rushing against a good opponent. And so we had that 216 yards rushing. We held them to 146 yards rushing. So, you know, we really won what we call that 2-yard zone there. And our kids were very physical, which is something that we talked about all year. In the off season, and we said if we can run the football and stop the run, 90% of the time you're going to win, and that was our goal going in, and we did that. But the turnovers, and we didn't have a lot of turnovers, just that they were just bad times in the game, and then some penalties that kept their drives alive. So, you know, we're hoping to keep playing the way we are and then eliminate some of the turnovers and the penalties, and things will go our way.
I think a lot of guys that don't get credit when stuff like that happens is your offensive line. I think your offensive line did a great job in controlling the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, especially the first half.
Yeah, well, they did really the whole game, because as we graded tape, you know, there were no missed assignments. We were knocking them off the ball. We were sustaining our blocks, and that enabled us to run the football as well as we did. And, you know, then we had Jake Davis rush 20 times for 144 yards. And anytime you have a tailback or a running back going over 100 yards, you're doing a pretty good job.
I noticed a couple times during that series in the opening drive is that I noticed Mark Redwer, a couple times, like you were saying with his blocks, a couple times he just manhandled a couple guys down there. So he did a great job.
Yeah,
I think.
Mark played a great game. He played a great game and was very physical, and we had a tendency to run over Mark to the left side quite a bit. So, you know.
Yeah. In your opening drive, it was mainly with the run, but you had one pass, I think it was to Murph Maine, I think.
Maine,
had
yeah.
a nice pass to set something up later on for one of your touchdowns. Explain a little bit about it.
Well, what we did was we brought Murph out of the backfield off of a play action, and they really didn't cover the fullback in the flat. And Brandon saw him, and they were rushing off the edge, and Brandon dumped the ball to him. Murph caught it, made a nice run, got us down around the goal line, you know, and you know, when you're running the ball effectively, your play-action pass game seems to go better because they're bringing the safeties in the corners, and the linebackers are really coming up tight to stop the run, and that leaves some things open in the passing game.
I believe, did that put you down to the 1-yard line with his run?
One or two.
And then you had that. Then I think Brandon Taylor was the one that ended up running in for a touchdown.
Quarterback sneak. Mm-hmm.
So that gave Anderson a 7-0 lead, and after a field goal from Oak Hills, Anderson went ahead and scored again, 14-3, and I believe, was that again on Jake Davis? Was that on
Jake Davis made a long run. Yeah, we had a quick hitter on the right side of the line, and Jake burst through, and we got some good blocks. Jahan Ollier made a nice block on the perimeter, and Jake broke it to the outside and went in and scored.
Great. Coach Giesting, your defensive coordinator, why don't you tell us, how long have you been the defensive coordinator here?
My 6 years defensive coordinator. I've been at Anderson 18 years.
Good.
I guess one less than Vince.
One less than Vince.
Yeah.
Okay. As we said, the defense looked very good early. I mean, we held Jimmy Dan Connors to, I think it's 15 yards in the first half,
yeah.
15 or 18 yards.
Yeah.
Then towards the middle of the second quarter, it looked like they went from the double tights to the spread offense, and they started some success through the air.
Right. Yeah, I was very happy with how we played early. I thought we set the tone and put our offense in a position where they could score. And, you know, it's always hard when teams change what they're doing. They went from the double tight, run the ball stuff where they weren't having success, and then he goes spread. Sometimes it takes the defense a series or two to adjust. And I think we saw at the end of the first half where they drove the ball down the field and got that touchdown before the half. But, you know, they're a good team too, and like Coach said, the mistakes that happened in the first game, we just had more of them than they did.
Well, Jimmy Nant Connors was I think he was second team All-City last year as a junior.
Right.
And I thought we did a real nice job on it. Even in the second half, he still ended up with about 75 or 80 yards, but I thought we really did a nice job in the whole game. Yeah,
he's a good player, and you know, they do a good job of setting him up to do different things. And with, like I said, when they switch schemes and go to their one-back stuff versus their power running game, and then, you know, the kids get used to playing one way and they have to adjust to that, and they do a good job with him, the way they package him.
They flip-flopped two, 3 times throughout the game. They'd go to the spread, then go back to the double tights, and then went back to the spread.
Right.
Was that hard for your linebackers and whatnot to adjust to that? Or?
Well, we did have, kind of 2 different game plans on how we were defending things. We'd practiced for both formations all week. And so it does take I think it is a mental thing for the kids to adjust to that. And, you know, but they did a nice job. I was happy with them. And, you know, it's one of those, that Oak Hills game, when you look at the schedule, is one of those toss-up games. And, you know, it went their way this week.
Good.
Your son plays on the defense unit, and we've talked with Vince about coaching your son. Is that a difficult thing for you, coaching your son? Do you get caught up watching him a little too much, maybe, or does that not happen? Or are you just too keyed up? Or
I guess I don't coach his position, so that I think is probably a good thing, because I don't know if he'd put up with me. But no, I really don't watch him as I guess a parent would watch in the stands. There's too much that I have to think about to be concerned with watching him. I'll watch the tape with him. I'll bring the tape home and we'll watch that together, and then maybe critique him a little bit that way. And he wants to do that too, and so forth. But you know, I know he's on. I know he's there, and it's important and so forth as a father. But it's you know, there's other things you got to take care of first.
You know, Vince, you said earlier, we're talking about the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, looks stronger. Do you attribute that obviously to your weightlifting program and everything that you had going on over the off season?
Most definitely, most definitely. Like I said, our size and strength is so much better than last year at this point in time. And I think that's going to be one of our strong suits throughout the year. That I think many of the games that we play, we will probably be stronger than most of the teams that we're playing. So. You know, I think that's really going to help us as the year goes on.
Quarterback play with Brandon Taylor, you know, being his first game, were you pretty happy with what Brandon did, and you know, for being his first, you know, quarterback, you know, game or whatever? You pretty happy with that?
Yeah, I was. There, you know, obviously are some strengths and some areas in which he needs to improve, like all the players. But I thought he managed the team very well. I thought he ran the option very well, and you know, I mean, it's no secret that he's a pretty good runner. He's 4.6 in the 40. You know, so when he has the ball in his hands, he's pretty dangerous, and he complements Jake and Kyle Welling, you know, and Murph, the other guys in the backfield, so that you always have that threat of the quarterback running the ball, plus the threat of him running the option and not pitching and keeping. And that was probably one of the reasons why I called the option down by the goal line. You know, you got a chance to have the ball in a playmaker's hands or pitch it to Jake, you know, but things just didn't turn out there like we wanted to. But yeah, you know, for a first game, and you have to remember, like I told our staff, you know, Brandon really did not play JV quarterback last year because he was the starting corner. So in the JV games, he never got to get the experience at quarterback that maybe some of the other kids did, where you take like Oak Hills' quarterback, Brock Miller. Now that kid was the starting quarterback all last year, and you could tell. You could tell in the game that Jimmy Dan Connors and Brock Miller were the two kids that played the whole season for them, and they were both at the skilled positions. And when you look at that game, they were probably the deciding factors. You know, they had the ball in their hands the most time, and they had played the most the year before of probably any of the offensive kids on that field. So, and I think as Brandon goes on and his season goes on, as he gains more experience, you know, he will get better and better, and we'll work on the things that he didn't do well in the game or some areas that I think he needs to improve upon, and we'll get better that way.
Do you think that I got a twofold question here. Do you think that Brandon is more of a passer than a runner? And then the other question is, with all the quarterbacks that you've had like Kurt did well at both of them. Vince seemed more of a passer than a runner. Now, can Brandon do both of them well, or is he more suited for one or the other?
Right now, he's a better runner than he is a passer. You know, and so we probably utilize him a little more in that fashion.
Okay.
I thought that he reminded me running a little bit of Kenny Riddell.
Yeah, maybe not quite as fast or as big as Kenny, but in some respects similar, yeah.
Jeff, this question's for you.
Okay.
Last year, I believe you guys switched the defense a little bit. You went to that 3-5-3.
Yep.
What was the reason for switching to that defense?
Well, we were always a 4-3 team, and as we just looked at our kids, we felt that it was hard to get 4 really good defensive linemen every year, year in and year out, because if you're going to be a 4-3 team or 4-4 even front team, you need to have some pretty good players up front, and we didn't have enough depth, and now we only needed 3 defensive linemen, and we had more linebacker type kids and safety type kids, and this was something actually Vincent brought up the year before that we talked about and looked into. So it's kind of been a 2-year thing where we looked at that and just thought it fit our personnel a little bit better, and you know, it's very flexible, and it's got a lot of you know, you can make it as complicated as you want or as simple as you want.
Are you pretty happy with where you're at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I was concerned with stopping the run, and I think our kids have picked up their keys and their responsibilities and are doing a good job with that. I think the added strength has helped with our tackling this year. We're a much better tackling team than we were. You know, our linebacker play, Bob Cook's been very good, and in the middle, and Evan Mextroth and JT Shelton on the defensive line, and you know, they're leading the younger kids. We're getting better.
This question we asked to Vince last year, so we're going to throw this one out to you too. We want to know what your most memorable moment is at Anderson High School.
Most memorable moment? Probably back in 1992 when we beat Princeton in the snow. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and watching Coach Parrish try to climb the top of that press box in Middletown. That was good.
As far as the game Friday night, again, a very close game, 25-22. The penalties played a factor. And the thing about the penalties, they came at like real critical times. You never want a penalty,
Sure.
but they happened at terrible times. I thought one of the biggest plays of the game was when we held them on 3rd and 10.
Right.
And they threw an incomplete pass, but they called for roughing the passer on the sidelines
Yeah.
there. Then 2 plays later, they scored the touchdown. Did that put them up 18-14, or
Yeah.
I believe that's the one
Yeah.
that put them up
Yeah.
18-14.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those plays that probably half the time the ref wouldn't call it when you look at it on film, and half the time they might. And you know, and they called it. It was a hustle play, and you know, you can't fault the kid for hustling. And you're right, though, it was a huge, because I think we'd come off the interception early in the half, and then you know, if we would have stopped them there, that'd have been two straight stops for us, and things would have been we'd have kept all the momentum. And against good teams, you can't give them that many chances.
You know, one of the things about penalties, when you look at penalties, you know, there are really kind of 2 types of penalties. Are they penalties that are caused by lack of concentration or loss of focus, you know, like jumping off sides, holding, those types of things? But the penalties that we had were basically because our kids were being aggressive. And you know, as I watched those penalties on videotape, and you know, you look at them, and we had one that was they called a late hit on the sidelines, but when you look at it on videotape, when he makes the hit, he's 1 foot from the sideline. So the one, he's still in bounds. So that, you know, a player that's running after an offensive player, doesn't always see where the line is. He's focused on the offensive player that he's going to tackle. And so, that was a call that could have been gone either way. The roughing the passer is the same thing. You have a defensive lineman that's chasing the quarterback full speed, and all of a sudden he stops and throws the ball. The kid's still running. You want your players to be aggressive. I would be more upset if they were personal foul or unnecessary roughness or because of bad language or something that was just out of character of our kids. But the penalties were caused really by our kids playing hard and hustling. So you really kind of got to be careful how you handle those things.
Right.
You don't want to dwell on them because you do want your kids to be aggressive and to go after, and play as hard as they can. So we really never made that big of a deal about it. Yeah, it was unfortunate that we got them, but also the other side of the ledger on that, they could have been called or they could have not. They were right there in the middle of the line there.
I'll tell you, when you see the game, you'll see that Dan and I kind of disagreed with that out of bounds hit, kind of throwing a flag on that.
And I told the official on the sidelines, I says, what I really don't like about that penalty, I said, is you just took control of the football game. You just took the game out of the players' hands, and now you're taking control of the game. Because we had them stopped right there, and they were going to punt,
right.
And now you're controlling. You've changed the momentum in this football game. That was the thing, but that's part of football. Mm-hmm. They're going to make those calls, and they're going to call them how they see them, and they've got the pen last, and we're going to lose. So you just got to live with it.
I think another thing that, I hate to harp on this, but the penalties were a big thing, but obviously, like we talked earlier, was the turnovers. You seemed like you had the momentum going, you were driving down there, and, Brandon pitched the ball to Jake, and I really feel that if you guys take that in, it's a different ball game. I mean, I think that was a pretty big turnover.
Yeah,
at the time.
probably. But one of the things about the option, when you run the option down on the goal line, usually inside the 10-yard line, they're man-to-man. So the option is usually a pretty good play to run because the defensive backs and linebackers are focused on their man. And if their receivers are running into the end zone, they're focused on them. They can't see the pitch. So if you make that pitch and he catches it, then there's a good chance we're going to score, and it's a great play. But it's also, there's some risk involved because if they get pressure in the quarterback or they hit the quarterback before he's ready or force him to pitch before he's ready, the ball could go on the ground. And so it's a double-edged sword there, and you got to take the good with the bad if you're going to take that chance. So, we were anticipating them changing defenses and going into what they call a bear defense. They had two defenses that they played, and a bear was their short yardage and blitz-type man-to-man defense, and we thought they were going to go into it, and the option is really a good call versus that. So, if the ball's this much further one way or the other, it could be a touchdown. But there are many, many plays in a football game that really make the outcome of the game. Sometimes you tend to focus on one because it's glaring and everybody sees it. But as you grade tape and go through, there's a lot of deciding factors in the football game.
And on the flip side of that, we had two interceptions. I believe one was Bob Cook, one of them, I believe.
Yeah, right at the
and the
end.
other one was Travis Reed. Explain a little bit about Travis because he played a little bit last year. I don't think he played a lot. Did he last year?
No, Travis hadn't played much at all, and we've had some injuries, and we plugged him in there, and he did a good job, playing his responsibility and doing what he's supposed to do, and went up and made the play, and I think someone had tipped the ball.
Yeah.
So it was good. I mean, I felt like both our turnovers were things that we had forced because I know Evan tipped the second one. I'm not sure if Gabe Carell or Evan tipped the first one too. They're both tall kids, and so that as a defensive coordinator, it's always good when you can force turnovers and not just get a gift.
Well, and Bob made a nice catch on his one.
He dove and did a good job on it. And that was important because it was right at the beginning of the second half.
Let's go ahead and look ahead to week 2 when the Redskins travel to Milford to play the Eagles, who lost last week to East Central 35-7. What can we expect?
From an offensive standpoint, they are as wide open as you can possibly be. They have not been in all the videotape that we have. They've got a new coach up there named Dick DeWitt, and he's doing a nice job. He's from the northern part of Ohio. He's from Upper Sandusky. And he's come down and take the Milford job, and they are wide open. They don't run really from any true tight end sets, and they don't run any two-back sets. So they are either in an empty set with 5 wide receivers and no running backs, or they're with one running back and 4 wide receivers, or trips to one side and a single receiver to the other. And they do a little bit of motion, but they are probably, as you break them down, they're probably about 80% pass, 20% run. So we are going to see more of a type of offense that we saw from Oak Hills when they were in the spread, but even more so because they run it less than Oak Hills. And they have a quarterback, number 8, Chris Ryan, who was their starting quarterback last year. In fact, when I worked the Ohio State camp 2 years ago, between his sophomore and junior year, Chris was in my group, as I worked with quarterbacks, and he was in my group, and he's about 6'1", 200. Good-sized kid, has a pretty lively arm, and pretty accurate. So, we've really got to do a good job in our pass defense, and they run it just enough to keep you honest, run a few traps in there, a little bit of option, a little bit of counter, and a couple draws, and so that they do enough in the run game that you've got to respect it, but they really want to spread it out and wing it. From a defensive standpoint, they're in a 3-4 defense where they have 3 down linemen and they have 4 linebackers. They're predominantly a zone team in the back, and usually with what we call a 2-deep shell, where they have 2 safeties on the hash, or they can bring them up and use them in run support. The kid that they have that I really like is number 33. It's a linebacker, one of the inside linebackers. His name's David Presley, and he does a really good job. He's very good at escaping blocks and pursuing to the football. So, we've got to be focused, and we've got to be prepared, and we've got to have a good week of practice. We got on the turf today. A little bit concerned because, it's supposed to rain Tuesday and Wednesday, and, anytime it rains, it limits the amount of work that you can get or the quality work. But, they're going to be faced with the same problem. Now, one of the advantages that we have is we can go on the turf. Right. I would say if the field's heavy and it's rained, it's more to their disadvantage than ours, because we're going to run the ball at least 50 to 60, maybe even 70% of the time, where they're only going to run it 20 and they're going to throw it. And it's hard to throw the football on a wet, heavy, muddy field, regardless of whether it's raining or not. So, I think they are a much improved team over Milford's team last year. I saw Milford play last year, and obviously we had some videotape from last year on them, and I think they're a much improved team, and there's no givens. We got to go up there and we got to really play well to win.
Was there any? Did we have any injuries from the Oak Hills game that might affect this?
Kyle Welling has a mild concussion, so he'll be questionable. But other than that, we really escaped from any serious injuries, which is always great.
Absolutely.
And you can have a full week of practice and pretty much have everybody healthy and practicing. You're going to improve. I think where you start running into trouble from your improvement level is when you start getting a lot of guys hurt, and then you're bringing new guys in, and you're not making progress that you need to make. So we were lucky this week, and we pretty much had everybody practice except for Kyle.
How did the JV and the freshmen do this week?
Okay, the freshmen tied 0-0 against Oak Hills, and really they only had 10 practice days, and probably only 7 of those were in pads. So it was really early for a freshman game, and most of the time you don't even play a freshman game before the varsity game. For some strange reason, we played that game and played it early. Our JVs lost by 2 points, but there's a catch to this. We lost 24-22, but we played on a field with no goalposts. So we had the ball on the 6-yard line with 4 seconds left, so we would have kicked the field goal had there been a goalpost, but since there was no goalpost, we couldn't. So we're going to put a little asterisk beside that.
Yeah, that gets the asterisk for sure.
The goalpost was in the dumpster, so
somebody couldn't prop it up for you.
We were thinking about doing that. So.
We're getting ready to wind this down here, and we got our offense and defensive players of the week. This week on offense was Jake Davis, like we said, had like 140-something yards rushing. On defense, we had Evan Mexcroft, and then we also, Bob Cook had a good game as well. And then our special teams was Ian Daly. So those are our 3 players of the game. And so we got T-shirts this year sponsored by the Football Moms. I'll try to get them to coach if we can. They've got different ones now. They got different colored ones, orange, gray, and white. And it actually says Offensive Player of the Game. It's a neat shirt. So the Football Moms got that for us. So we want to thank them for getting that for us.
Great. Okay, so we'll wind things down. Guys, good luck Friday night.
Thanks.
Jeff, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here.
Sure.
And
Pleasure.
as always, Coach, thanks for coming and joining us.
Pleasure.
We really enjoy bringing these shows to everyone, and I'm sure they enjoy watching them. So, sponsors?
Well, the sponsors we're still, like we said last week, are still working on some of those, but John Waters from Midwest EXP is one of our sponsors, and the Anderson Football Moms that we know for sure, but some of the other ones will come as we go along. So we want to thank them for all their support and help for that.
So now we're going to try to bring you the Milford game this week. We're working on it. It's not for sure yet, but we're going to try to bring you the Milford game. And we're going to try to do all the away games if we can. We certainly do all the home games, but we're working on it. But we think we'll do the Milford game. What do you think?
Yeah, we got a little, found out that we cannot be in the booth. So we're going to try to wing it and do it outside the booth and try to do it with a little handheld mic. So we're going to see what happens, and hopefully we can do that for the rest of the away games.
Probably get beat up by Milford fans. Anyway, until next week, for Dan Albers, for Vince Suriano, for Jeff Giesting, I'm Greg Ellis. Thanks for joining us here on Redskin Review.